If you remember in the first half of the show, we talked about public shaming, where people record their parents record their kids doing something that makes them embarrassed, like if they hit girls and they're out there with signs saying "I hit girls." We focused on a bunch of public shaming, but this one you're about to meet has a teenager stealing another employee's stuff. And this guy had two options. Either one, public shaming, or two, go to prison. He chose option one. This was from 4 years ago, and really, you're about to see what happened when he was out in the heat for several hours. Here's Jennifer Bauer.
For 4 hours today, Mark Anthony Doyle stood on this Montgomery County corner. His sign says, "I stole and lied to my boss. This is to keep my head right." The 17-year-old was also forced to wear a pink shirt and lipstick.
And I said, "Look, man," I said, "you have two options. You can either deal with Montgomery County, go to jail, or this is what I come up with."
Brent Franklin owns a local construction company, and Mark Anthony has worked for him for the last year. This summer, he invited the teen to live with him so he could mentor him, help him get his life on track, and help him save money. Franklin says Mark Anthony has had a troubled childhood.
I wanted to help him out. He worked his butt off for me.
But after a few days out of town, Franklin says he returned home to find a damaged Rolex watch and several $1,000s worth of high-end items missing. He says Mark Anthony not only stole from him, but then lied about it. And this is his punishment.
I earned it. I shouldn't have stole. I shouldn't have lied.
I think he's a good kid. I think he just made a mistake, and this is just going to be a tough lesson for him to learn.
And tonight, Brent tells us he is still going to allow Mark Anthony to work for him and gain his trust back. We're live in Montgomery County. I'm Jennifer Bauer, KPRC, Channel 2 News.
Jennifer, thank you. As you might imagine, this story has generated an awful lot of feedback on our KPRC Facebook page. We invite you to join in the conversation. Just go to Facebook/KPRC2, share your comments, and then share the story with your friends if you'd like.
Now, this was from 4 years ago, but nothing has changed in the wake of public shaming. Now imagine it's the same thing breaking the law. Take a look at this video from 8 years ago.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm Amy Holmes, bringing you Law and Order on a hot list at theblaze.com. Edmund Aviv of South Euclid, Ohio, was just found guilty of harassing his neighbors and their disabled children over a 15-year feud.
When the children would go out to try to play in the limited ability that they had, and if they lost the ball, he would kick it as hard as he could across the street so that they could not access it.
As punishment, the judge in the case sentenced the 62-year-old perp to stand outside yesterday for 5 hours wearing a sign that read, in part, quote, "I am a bully, I pick on children that are disabled, and I am intolerant of those that are different from myself." Along with 15 days in jail and 100 hours of community service, Mr. Aviv got off pretty easy for his ritual abuse of 2 disabled children, their older brother, and their adoptive parents. Another Ohio judge made headlines last summer when she sentenced 58-year-old Richard Dameron to wear a sign reading, quote, "I apologize to Officer Simone and all police officers for being an idiot, calling 911, threatening to kill you. I'm sorry, and it will never happen again."
I didn't want to do it, but judge didn't do it, so, I'm going to be the man to stand up.
Mr. Dameron only had to wear his sign for 3 hours on Labor Day. In Houston, Texas, Eloise and Daniel Morales faced a much tougher sentence of shame. Back in 2010, the couple was found guilty of stealing $250,000 from a crime victims fund. Judge Kevin Fine brought the gavel down hard and ordered the Morales to spend every Saturday and Sunday for the next 6 years wearing signs that read, quote, "I am a thief. I stole $250,000 from the Harris County Crime Victims Fund." Law professor Jonathan Turley at George Washington University thinks that shame punishments bring shame on the courts and undermine the cause of justice. What do you think? Is public humiliation for breaking the law just desserts, or does it sour the system? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. We'll be reading them. I'm Amy Holmes reporting to you from the Blaze Newsroom in New York City.
I'm against public shaming. And that's crossing the line. But when you have people that break the law, you throw them in prison. You don't send them out with signs saying, I beat girls so and so. Sometimes if I saw someone beating somebody up, I seriously want to screw that person up. And there's one more to this story.
Skipping the grocery store and cooking a HelloFresh dinner, you'll reduce your food waste by up to
But I'm against public shaming. I mean, going out there, I mean, it affects your self-esteem. I mean, I don't mind adults doing public shaming. I'm against it for kids and teenagers. It makes them act out more. That's why I'm against people like this. And this story I'm going to show you when we return here. This person was twerking. Now, if you know what twerking is a sexual dance act where you just twerk. I'm not going to show you, but she'll get the she already got the punishment, and she'll that story coming up next. Then a bit later on, is there a link between agricultural, government, and obesity? Peter Jennings on how to get fat without really trying. Stay with us. Now on to another twerking story. This girl right here is being punished by this mother because the mother's daughter, because the daughter was doing an inappropriate dance called twerking. It's an inappropriate dance that involves dancing with your bottom, and then everyone does it. Everybody does. Every woman does it. And she did this at a school dance. But what the mother did has everybody questioning whether they learned a lesson or not. Take a look.
This is a sign Frances Hanna is using to punish her 7th grade daughter, Jamie.
I was disrespecting my parents by twerking at my school dance.
Seems like you're upset.
Yes.
Before a school function at Washington Junior High, Hanna told her daughter not to do the dance, but she didn't listen and decided to twerk anyway.
That's ridiculous to even think that's okay at a school dance. And the school didn't even call me and let me know that it was going on.
A friend told the furious mom about what happened, and that's when Hanna decided to go public to get her point across.
I also want her to realize that she is just a child and she can't do that. She just can't.
Many cars stopped to read the sign, some laughing and others asking, did Hanna go too far?
Every parenting is different. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Whoop her and, get the cops called on me? Or, I mean, I think this is embarrassing. I do. I'm embarrassed myself for having her twerk at a school dance.
Hanna plans to take a more active role in her daughter's school life by having better communication with educators.
I'm planning on going to her school a few times a week from now on, just to try to make myself present there and for her to know that, I'm not playing around. This is serious.
As for Jamie, she says this is one lesson she's learning the hard way.
Yes. No.
As where she learned how to do the dance, Mom says she probably picked it up from the internet, which she used by using the Wi-Fi on the iPod she used to own, but was taken away as another form of punishment. Reporting live in Central Bakersfield, I'm Carlos Correa, 23 ABC.
And you can imagine cars going by and seeing this, and you could look at this and say, well, it's a shame. But experts weigh in saying it will it makes them act out even more. On the first half, we showed you two kids that skipped school, and what had happened was those two kids got a lesson by sweeping the floors. Now, did they have signs on? No, but they had t-shirts saying, I skipped school. But the mother felt it was appropriate enough, and she did the right thing by taking away the Xbox, the bike, everything. So that leads you to believe. But here's another one from 3 years ago.
Pine Island, you ain't welcome back.
First came the posts claiming that Cape Coral man had dined and dashed. Then came insults and threats from total strangers. A Matt Lachey restaurant started it all, accusing the man of running out on his bill. But he told NBC2's Alex Howard it's all a misunderstanding and you should think twice before you click share.
It wasn't long after Almond paid a visit to the Blue Dog Bar and Grill here in Matt Lachey on Wednesday that he learned about being caught on camera. But today he told me he thought his $88 bill and, of course, the server's tip had been paid by the woman he was with. His message to you, not every social media post tells the whole story.
It's dine and dash, you know what I mean? And that's not who I am.
It was just before 3 p.m. on Wednesday that Dustin Allman and his friend paid a visit here, thinking his friend would cover the bill.
Came in, they wanted to give me some lunch or whatever. Walked into Blue Dog Bar and Grill because it's a really good restaurant. And, you know, I was under the assumption that the bill was paid. We left, and then I went to work.
Shortly after they left, the Blue Dog Bar and Grill posted this to Facebook, calling him out for ripping off the restaurant.
Some of them are saying, dude, what the f***?
It didn't take long for the post to get back to Dustin.
This is so shameful of you. Everyone knows that I have the money to pay the bills.
When he realized the mistake, he went back and paid the bill. Even the Blue Dog restaurant posted, saying they settled up, and he'd left a generous tip. But that didn't stop the social media outrage from total strangers.
I would say probably 50 to 100 messages in between Facebook messages and text messages.
Some, he says, were even threatening.
Stay off Pine Island, you ain't welcome back.
Amplifying a simple social media post and a misunderstanding.
It boils down to a really big, complete misunderstanding that spiraled out of control within a matter of minutes.
Into something much more serious.
Because I got screenshotted on Facebook and people seen my face and looked at me like I dined and dashed and didn't pay and like I did it on purpose.
I also reached out to the Blue Dog Bar and Grill for comment, but they didn't want to talk. And as for Allman, he did post his phone number to the restaurant's Facebook page, giving detractors direct contact. Going to show you every post, like or share, should be done with caution. Live in Matt Lachey, Alex Howard, NBC2.
So who was to blame in the situation? The restaurant itself. And it was his own fault for the bill. So that leads you to believe what the heck is going on here. So yeah, I feel like the restaurant should be blamed. They didn't want to talk, but I'm glad he told this side of the story. So that's why I believe in him. And that's why I'm against public shaming. It may work for adults, but for kids, it makes them act on even more. So bottom line about this, public shame adults or parents, but not the kids or the teenagers. Just wait till they become grown-ups. Coming up next, a look at the food industry. Look at obesity. Who's to blame when it comes to being overweight or obese? Peter James with How to Get Fat Without Really Trying. Stay with us. When you were a kid in school, you had to watch all those health videos all about obesity. When they got on the subject of obesity, you had to watch videos like Super Size Me. But this video I'm about to show you, this was from back in 2003, where it talked about obesity and who was to blame. Now, I showed this at school back in 2016, not all of it, but I'm going to show it to you here on this broadcast because obesity is not something to mess around with. Years ago, almost 1 in 3 Americans are obese. And no one wants to be. We just want to be thinner. And get old, and young Americans are getting fatter and fatter and fatter. We may think it's our own fault. It's not that simple. We blame the food industry and the government for all this. So who's the real victim here? Here's Peter Jennings.
We went first to the farmlands of America where the food chain begins. During the harvest season here, fertile soil and hard work pay off with an agricultural abundance that feeds the nation and the world. And here in Millersport, Ohio, people celebrate the harvest in a traditional way. The Millersport Sweet Corn Festival attracts 50,000 people to the music, the pageants, and of course, the corn. This is a celebration of American agriculture.
We as Americans spend less of our disposable income on food than anybody else on the face of this globe. And it's because our farmers are very efficient. They've worked with their government to be able to not only be efficient and effective in what they do, but also produce an incredible product.
It's the first time in mankind's history that you haven't have to worry about food. We're the envy of the world in our agricultural system.
But the story of American agriculture is also one of unintended consequences. Today, American farmers produce for domestic consumption vastly more food than America needs, nearly twice as much. And the more food we grow, the more we eat. Abundance has become the enemy.
When I first started studying nutrition, it never occurred to me that I need to know anything at all about agriculture. Now I see it as the basis of everything having to do with nutrition. If you want to understand why people eat the way they do, you need to understand the way agriculture works in this country.
To begin with, agriculture works in America through farm subsidies. During the Depression in the 1930s, government began subsidizing farmers to save them from financial ruin. The money never stopped. This year, government will put roughly $20 billion into agriculture, most of it directly to the farmers. And not many people in the government have made the connection between subsidies to agriculture and obesity. But there is one, and it's very important.
Does the government take dietary guidelines and nutritional concerns into consideration when it's making those grants?
There's no concern whatsoever. There's no link between agricultural subsidies and health. In fact, we've been trying to find analyses of what is the health impact of the farm subsidies. We can't find a single study. Congress, the administration, is handing out these subsidies without knowing what is the ultimate impact on their constituents, the American public.
The Bush administration's man in charge of public health is Health and Human Services Secretary Tommy Thompson.
Do you see any connection between the federal government's agricultural subsidy programs and nutrition?
I really don't. Because the subsidy programs are things that are done through Congress, much more so than trying to come up with an overall strategy as far as nutrition is concerned.
Well, do you see a connection between the money which government gives to agriculture and nutrition? Do you see a connection?
There's no question that if you have money out there and subsidizing particular things, that product is going to be grown more. And some of those products are not good for nutrition. If that's what you're asking me, yes.
This is the food pyramid, the government's guide to good nutrition, what we should be eating. Less of what is on top, sugars, fats, and then meats and dairy, and more of what's on the bottom, grains and fresh fruits and vegetables.
Of the total amount of money that supports American agriculture, how much of that money goes towards fruits and vegetables, both production and promotion?
You'd have to look at the percentage as less than 1%, minimal products.
We wanted to see what the food pyramid would look like if it reflected where the government farm subsidies actually end up. Look at this. Since 1995, meat and dairy got about 3 times the subsidies of grains. According to data from the Department of Agriculture and the Environmental Working Group, fats and oils, the foods government says we should eat least, got about 20 times more subsidies than fruits and vegetables.
There's a disconnect between agriculture policy and health policy. That's probably the biggest problem that the federal government faces. We don't look at how agricultural policy can help improve public health. It's strictly about subsidies.
And does government know this?
Government knows it. I'm not sure government at the moment knows what to do about it. How do you undo government policy that has not been focused on health and nutrition, but has been focused on subsidizing farmers?
The most heavily subsidized crop in America is corn. Farmers plant nearly 80 million acres of corn, and in the last 5 years, they got an average of $5.5 billion in federal subsidies every year.
On your mark. You salute!
When most of us think of corn, we do tend to think of the sweet corn they're eating here at the Millersport Festival.
It don't get any better than this, folks. Lost the tooth. Oh, no. Lost the tooth. Unbelievable. Tooth fairy tonight.
But there is another way to think of corn, not as corn on the cob, but as cheap raw material for the giant food industry.
The vast majority of corn is feed corn. It's fed to chickens, hogs, and especially cattle. That corn helps these animals grow faster, fatter, and holds down the costs of meat. That encourages Americans to eat more meat.
Of course, beef cattle were never intended to eat corn, and so they have to be given all sorts of antibiotics to keep them healthy. Subsidized corn is everywhere. The whole food system has been, as someone said, cornified. Corn is processed and put into thousands of products that Americans use every day.
There you go, we're going to soap.
If you want to see more directly how farm subsidies can lead to obesity, there is no better place than your local theater. The popcorn you eat here is made with subsidized corn.
One large popcorn? Sure, no problem.
The popcorn is so inexpensive that the bag it comes in costs more than the popcorn. That's why you can buy the mega size for just a few pennies more. The oil they cook it in is subsidized too. And so is the oil they put on top. That is not usually butter, but subsidized vegetable oil. And there's corn in the soda. A corn-derived sweetener called high fructose corn syrup. Since the 1970s, its use has gone up more than 4,000%. Subsidized corn sweeteners, which have pretty much taken over from sugar, are in candy and pretzels and some hot dogs too.
Is there something else I can get you today, like a hot dog or a nice warm pretzel?
Here's something else to know about obesity. Americans consume nearly 3 times more corn in the form of corn sweeteners than they do in every other form.
Corn is the principal source of sweeteners in American diets. So what these subsidies do is to lower the cost of the ingredients that go in processed foods, particularly high-calorie processed foods, and they make those foods cheaper.
Currently, the government subsidizes corn, and more corn, and very little fresh fruits and vegetables.
But corn is a staple that is not only used for food, it's also used for the tremendous animal industry that we have in this country. So it's important that corn continues to grow in America.
Do you believe we should plant less corn and more fruits and vegetables?
Well, that you can't make that determination from Washington, D.C.
The government already controls the way food is grown, processed, and consumed in this country. There are already government policies that are involved in every aspect of the food chain, from production to consumption. We want the government to be involved in personal eating behavior in a more healthful way.
Here's another example of a massive government subsidy which contributes to obesity: soybeans. Most of the soy that people eat is not in its healthy form, such as soy protein, but in the form of oil, including cooking oil and margarine. Soybean oil is the largest source of added fats in the American diet. As for fruits and vegetables, if Americans were to follow a healthy diet, the Department of Agriculture says that nearly twice the number of acres of fruits and vegetables would have to be planted.
Why do you think fruits and vegetables do get so little support from the federal government?
Oh, I guess you could say our lobbyists aren't as good. Maybe we haven't had the tradition.
Do you mean that? Other aspects, other divisions of the food industry are better lobbyists than you?
We've not had traditional subsidy programs, so there's not an ingrained group in Congress that's there fighting for the program, fighting for the fruit and vegetable program.
We're talking about huge agribusiness companies that own thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres. And these are, of course, the people who give the largest campaign contributions to members of Congress.
It does make you think twice about all the symbols of agricultural abundance that we see in the nation's capital. A reminder of how important subsidies are in the political system and how hard it will be to change that, whatever the impact on the nation's health.
Do you hold the Congress accountable for subsidizing the wrong foods?
No, I do not. I think that is a decision that Congress makes, and I'm not going to criticize Congress on the decisions they make as far as food products.
Why do you think no one in government has made the connection between agricultural policy and obesity?
I really don't think it's as you have stated it, Peter. I don't think that there's any direct correlation out there that agriculture policy has been set up in some insidious way to subsidize things that are going to be bad for our health.
I didn't suggest it was insidious. I'm suggesting that there is a possibility that government subsidizes more food which you would say, as the country's leading health officer, is bad for us, and subsidizes less those foods which you would tell us are good for us and we should eat.
And that has also been throughout the ages, and Congress has made those decisions, and they're political ones, as you know, Peter, and I don't think you're going to change the political arena as far as subsidizing agriculture in America in the near future.
Well, the Secretary is probably right. But with so many voters in the country desperately trying to lose weight, you might think some clever politician would devise an "I'll make you thinner" platform. It would at least question for the first time how federal agriculture policy helps to make us fat.
But how does it make us fat? Coming up next, a look at the food industry from your local supermarkets. And how to burn calories from a soda bottle to a bag of chips to a fast food meal. Stay with us. We focus in on the corn, from the sweet corn to the corn syrup to the high fructose corn syrup in sodas and all. Now let's look at the processed foods, the ones that you buy in the supermarket. Should we be eating less or more? Once again, here's Peter Jennings.
Americans probably don't think very much about government food policies when they're in the supermarket, but maybe they should.
The cheapness of the food ingredients encourages the food industry to produce processed foods that sit on supermarket shelves, have very cheap ingredients, and can be sold at high prices because they're branded.
Processed foods are typically made from a mixture of sugar, water, flour, starch, fat, artificial colorings and flavorings. And you can make almost anything out of that. Puddings, snack foods, beverages. Those are dirt cheap to produce. The food is nothing. It's the processing. That's where the profits are.
A typical supermarket may have 30, 40, 50,000 products, most of it processed food made with government-subsidized ingredients. In 2002, supermarkets sold $174 billion worth of processed food.
Food industries pushed on mass distribution of low-cost products. That's their strategy.
Jim Tillotson is a professor, but in the 1970s he worked for the Ocean Spray Company.
For years, my favorite drink was orange juice, but cranberry juice cocktail is a smashing new taste.
Tillotson figured out how to make more money by replacing expensive ingredients in Ocean Spray products, like real fruit juice, without people noticing.
You could make a drink that was very good, probably more inexpensively, by using some fruit juice, sugar and water, and a very fine flavor system, and people couldn't tell the difference.
Since sugar was expensive, Tillotson turned to that inexpensive, subsidized corn sweetener, high fructose corn syrup.
So we were able to reduce the price and be profitable. And as a matter of fact, at the time I brought my wife a Volvo, and we always refer to it as a sugar wagon, because my bonus came from being able to save the company a lot of money using high fructose corn syrup. People ask me, well, weren't you concerned about eventually that people would get fat from this? It never crossed our mind. absolutely never crossed our mind.
With obesity on our minds, we went to the Food Marketing Institute's annual convention in Chicago. This is where the packaged food industry unveils its new products.
It's shock-normous. It is shock-normous.
All those subsidized farm ingredients are being turned into products like these.
There's a half a pound of meat in each jar.
Microwaves in 6 minutes. These are interactive beverages.
That actually is a product designed to emulate chewing tobacco?
It's a Latino-inspired beverage.
We couldn't quite believe what we were seeing here. Thousands of new products.
What I like to say is Yoo-hoo is like an everyday sort of thing, 3 or 4 times a day, whereas your Yoo-hoo double fudge is more like a dessert.
Free samples, we're giving them away today.
And while a lot of the products looked familiar to us, everyone was telling us that they had the newest thing.
We have over 100 new products.
It's Sprite with a little tropical flavor, and for us, that little sense of newness.
When you look at all the products introduced by the industry in recent years, one thing is absolutely clear. The vast majority are foods that Americans should be eating less.
Meal, dessert. So it's like your post-Yoo-hoo Yoo-hoo.
If you look at the new foods that are being marketed each year, probably 90% of them are packaged foods, very often junk foods. The tip of that food pyramid, what you should eat less of.
Last year, there were more than 2,800 new candies, desserts, ice creams, and snacks, and 230 new fruit or vegetable products.
When we were looking at the mix of products your industry has introduced in the past 10 or 15 years, it looks like you are giving people a greater choice of food which government mostly thinks are unhealthy for them, and less choice of those which are healthy for them.
I think that the food industry is providing a wide variety of choice, and certainly if you look at some of the recent market trends, you're seeing a major increase in the good-for-you foods category.
Well, here's what we found. Of all the products introduced last year, thousands of them, only 131 of them even claim to be reduced or low in calories. And the more of these top-of-the-pyramid, low-nutrition, high-calorie foods they introduce, the more of them we eat.
In the 60s and 70s, we consumed healthy snacks. Kids consumed milk, we consumed fruit, we consumed what you would think of as really good foods. What's changed in the last decade is we're consuming high-fat, salty snacks. That could be tortilla chips or potato chips. It could be kind of candies and desserts and so forth. We've really changed the nature of what we call a snack.
You can go into any grocery store, into any restaurant. You can buy the diet soda if you want to. You can buy the low-fat alternatives. You can buy the smaller portion if you want to.
Rick Berman runs the Center for Consumer Freedom, funded by the restaurant industry.
Just look what this reckless cookie-baking business has done to my pocket.
They have been running advertisements criticizing those who criticize the food industry.
You make things good on purpose, don't you?
I guess so.
Learn more about lawyers cashing in on obesity at Consumer.
What the food companies are doing is just responding to consumer demand.
Is it, as far as you're concerned, entirely a matter of personal choice and not at all a matter of marketing?
Well, ultimately, it is a matter of personal choice. I mean, we can't dictate what people choose to eat. So yes, at some point, what people choose to eat or how they choose to move is ultimately the issue here.
Of course, what you eat is a personal decision. The overweight and obesity epidemics are a result of people choosing to eat more, eat larger portions, and eat more often. Americans are choosing foods with more sweeteners and more calories. They're drinking more sodas, eating more candy, and snacking all day long.
Don't you think the food industry is simply giving people the products they want?
I don't think that you can talk about giving the public what the public wants without discussing the $33 billion a year that the food industry spends to try to promote that kind of want.
Do we need anything else here?
If you were going to design a strategy to try to get people to eat more food, you'd make food more convenient, you'd make it ubiquitous, you'd encourage people to eat more frequently on more different eating occasions, and you'd encourage them to eat larger portions. And all of those are deliberate strategies to sell more food.
In the last 20 years, you have increased the size of your products. You have increased the number of products you introduce. You have increased the marketing of your products. Are these not strategies designed to get people to eat more?
No, they're strategies to respond to what people's needs are today. I think that the industry is acting very responsibly to try to bring these products to market in a responsible way and to make sure that what they're offering fits into people's healthy diets.
Working the pounds off, it's Good Morning America's Lock the Door, Lose the Weight.
Americans talk a lot about being fit and thinner. Americans spend billions of dollars every year on diets and exercise.
Reach and pull good.
There are thousands of exercise videos, machines, gadgets, gimmicks, all designed to help us lose the weight we put on by eating too much.
How about butt squeeze?
Oh!
And for the food industry, exercise is a convenient answer to obesity.
I think people do need to exercise more. And not just exercise, because when you think of exercise, it often seems like it's more than you can fit into your very busy day. But you can take small steps.
Obesity is not going to be solved through sheer physical activity. The food industry would like to blame everything on lack of exercise. Eat as much as you want, exercise it off. Go out and buy a bike or play basketball with your kid. We should do that, but that's only part of the battle.
And here is why. You have to jog for 15 minutes to burn just 1 ounce of potato chips. You have to bike for an hour to burn the calories in this soda. And this supersized meal at McDonald's has so many calories, you have to walk for 6 hours to burn it off. It is hard to see how exercise alone is the solution to obesity. And one food company appears to get it.
We need to be part of the solution. We need to try to make a difference here.
If you need to be part of the solution, does this mean you're part of the problem?
I think food is part of the problem.
Michael Mudd is a senior vice president at Kraft, the largest American food processor. They make Triscuits and Oreos and Oscar Mayer products, among other things.
What do you think the right public policy is? Do you think it has as its bottom line, eat less?
If you ask the question, should America be eating less? Definitely we should be eating less, especially if we're not going to increase our activity.
We would not support a move to eat less because that's not going to solve the problem. Simply suggesting to people that you eat less food really is, I think, it's not the approach to take.
Given what you do for a living, isn't that rather self-serving?
Well, our message is eat a balanced diet, eat foods that are at the top of the pyramid in moderation, and get some activity in your life.
Kraft's approach is different. The company has proposed a wholesale review of all their products and their marketing because they know obesity is an epidemic.
What we'll do is go category by category, product by product, to look for small but meaningful opportunities to improve the nutrition.
What's the definition of meaningful?
Let's say I have a reduced fat product that takes out 5 grams versus the original, and 10 people choose that product. So on a population-wide basis, we've saved 50 grams of fat. But if I take the regular version of that product and I remove 1 gram of fat, and I do it in a way that doesn't affect the taste, and now 90 people choose that product, on a population-wide basis, I've saved 90 grams of fat. And that's my definition of a meaningful change.
In other words, making every product a little healthier would have an effect on more people.
And then we also have roasted garlic.
Public health experts say that it could help if Kraft follows through.
Pick up your chips over at Unilever Ice Cream, Unilever Best Food, and...
But counting on voluntary measures by the food industry to improve the American diet is something of a gamble.
Let's find ourselves a winner.
After all, their job is to sell more food, and it is hard to imagine the companies sacrificing their profits for the benefits of public health.
You're lucky. Yeah, are you feeling lucky?
What the food companies are worried about now is that there will be a public backlash against their products. And so they're all scrambling to try to figure out what to do. If the public starts eating less, that's going to be bad for business, and there's no getting around that.
Eat less means that we're not going to buy as much product. It goes all the way down the chain. The supermarkets, the restaurants, the food manufacturers, agriculture. We're not going to need as much product. And that's going to be a very difficult lesson to get through.
We have said from the outset that the processed food industry is very smart and will adapt as it sees fit when there is public pressure. Look at all the low-fat products they've introduced. Trouble is, when the companies take out the fat, they often put in more sweeteners, which means more calories. So since all those products with reduced fat came on the market, Americans have actually put on more weight.
So that's the bottom line here. You take out less fat, more sweeteners. More sweeteners, less fat. That's the whole key here. FMBS in a moment. Do you ever go to places that sell bagels and you complain there's not enough cream cheese or too much cream cheese? Well, here's James Wolfe with FMBS.
You know what's bullshit? Places that sell bagels with butter or cream cheese because they put too much fucking cream cheese on it. Mostly, this problem I've encountered happens at Dunkin' Donuts and Wawa. And for those of you from around the world, yes, that's what it's called, Wawa. But is there any need to put this much cream cheese on a bagel? I have to get a plastic spoon or a napkin to wipe it off. You can't bite into it without getting it all over your face. Seriously, who wants all that? When the cream cheese fills the hole in the middle of the bagel, I think that's when you should realize it's too much. So are you going to eat the cheese in the middle of the hole? Or are you going to get a spoon and push it out? Like shit being squished out of a seagull's asshole. I mean, who's gonna eat that? You might as well just be eating a plain glob of cream cheese. Now, maybe that's what some people like. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody came in and complained that there wasn't enough cream cheese. So now they just cover the fucking things. Now, that's fine with me. If somebody else likes it, that's okay. But why not have options for different amounts of cream cheese? There should be markings on the wrapping paper that says light, medium, or extra. But I never saw anything like that, and that's bullshit. Wait, I'm not...
And that's how it is. More of how to get fat without really trying coming up. Stay with us. We're out of time now, but we're going to continue this on Friday. More of that how to get fat without really trying, from exercising to more agriculture. Peter James will look more into this. On Throwback Thursday, since it's already Super Bowl coming up, Super Bowl's already coming up, so we're going to do a Throwback Thursday dedicated to every Super Bowl episode we've done on the show. From Super Bowl hotels to the ever viral video. Hey, Jimmy Kimmel, I unplugged the TV during the Super Bowl, which I got a challenge for you guys out there. Make a video. Make a video of you during the Super Bowl. I want you to film yourselves unplugging the TV. That's how I unplugged the TV during the Super Bowl game. Now you may think, I'm commenting on Jimmy Kimmel, but this is just inspiration. So we'll have that. We'll include how to get fat without really trying on Friday, and our Super Bowl Throwback Thursday will happen, along with our Super Bowl special coming up on a Sunday during the Super Bowl. So I hope you'll watch. Here's a story you'll see next week.
Stossel special. What's going on in America's schools?
They're not learning anything. It's insane.
Kids fail to make the grade because their schools fail them.
My son is now 18, and he is not reading.
Tonight, stop kidding yourself about your child's school.
The people in the suburbs say our schools are great, but they're not.
So what do schools really need?
We just need a little more money. That is the biggest lie in America.
Is the real problem bad teachers?
You prove I'm a bad teacher. If you can't prove it, don't try it.
And we hate to compare, but why can't kids here keep up with students over there?
If the kids in America couldn't do this, they're really stupid.
The failures, the successes.
Learning should be fun.
We'll teach you a thing or two about being stupid in America, how we cheat our kids.
That's coming up soon. Stupid in America, how we cheat our kids. We may watch it here, or I'll get the DVD on Amazon or eBay, and we'll watch it in 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the one of the two. So in the meantime, that's Give Me a Break for this Thursday. Wednesday going to Thursday. We'll see you again tomorrow for Give Me a Break for our Throwback Thursday on the GMB YouTube channel. And I'll see you again on Give Me a Break Friday. For all of us here at YouTube. And Give Me a Break. Have a good night, everyone.